Hello everyone, Jorbs here coming at you with some YouTube exclusive content. We ran a charity event for Feeding America last month in April of 2020, and I set up donation goals up to $5,000 raised. I was gonna play chat drafts on the channel, basically, where viewers got to pick which cards I chose. And we raised a little under $14,000 in the end. So I needed to come up with some new milestones, and I set at $10,000, thinking I would never ever possibly have to do this, a milestone of a Prismatic Shard Start Overexplained run for YouTube. And so that's what you're getting now, because the community is just incredibly generous and awesome. Because this is as a result of a charity event for Feeding America, I do want to plug them real quick. They're doing an incredible job right now with COVID-19. There's a lot of food just like stuck in fields. The restaurant I would usually go to is closed or not doing as much business as usual. And sometimes all you have to do is pay for a truck to drive to a field, put some food in it, and take it to a food bank. And you can be the difference between people being hungry or people being fed and happy and safe. So the return on money donated to Feeding America right now is just absolutely incredible. I just truly think it's the best charity you can be donating to if you're in the US right now. And if you are in other countries, I suspect that there's probably a national food bank charity in your country too, which you could be supporting. There's a pretty decent chance of it. The US has a particularly messed up food system. Other countries might be doing better than the US in general. I'm not sure exactly. You'd have to check that out yourself, but I am very pleased with how much we were able to raise for Feeding America. So I said I'd do a Prismatic Shard Start run, and one way I could do that is I could just console in Prismatic Shard, but I think a more interesting way to do this, and also a way that other people can duplicate themselves if they want to without having to use the console, is to do a custom mode run. And we're starting on Ascension 20. We have the final act enabled, and we have red cards, green cards, blue cards, purple cards, and colorless cards set up. And these are appearing in card rewards. They also appear in shops this way. So my starting character doesn't matter quite as much, because if you only do Prismatic Shard, then when you go to a shop, most of the cards are going to be of your starting character's type, plus a couple of colorless ones. This way, though, the shops will be Prismatic Shardy as well. So I spent a little bit of time actually thinking about which character I wanted to attempt this with. The differences are going to be what our starter deck is, and what our starter relic is, and what our starting HP is. I thought probably the defects orb is just going to have a lot of trouble scaling in relevance, because only defect cards care about orbs. And probably Watcher's Eruption and Vigilance are very strong, but I was a little bit uncomfortable at the idea of playing a deck with an Eruption in it in like Act 3 with 30 cards and not having anything else to leave Wrath yet. Maybe that's silly, and maybe Watcher's the right pick, because I think Watcher's starting Miracle is also quite good, and the starter deck in general is quite good. But I ended up deciding on Ironclad. I think that Vulnerable from Bash is going to be relevant a lot of the time, and I think that healing for 6 HP every fight is great. I would have taken Silent, because I think the Weak from Neutralize is really good all of the time too, and Survivor is a good block card, but the problem is that Silent starts with one more strike and one more defend, so that sort of balances out the starting relic in a negative way, I think. So we're gonna go with Ironclad. Let's hit Embark. Turn off chat mode. Here are my modifiers. Time for a challenge. One problem with not using console is that I won't be getting a whale bonus. If I started a regular run, I could get a whale bonus, but you don't get whale bonuses in custom runs. Unless there's like a way to do that that I didn't check. Maybe there was an option I didn't check. So one of the weird things about doing an overexplained Prismatic Shard run is I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Usually when I do an overexplained run, it's like, oh yeah, I have a wealth of knowledge. But in Slay the Spire, once you're someone who can win a decent chunk of the time, a lot of winning slightly more than a decent chunk of the time just comes down to learning more and more and more tiny optimizations and interactions between cards and so on and so forth. And so I feel like I'm a bit of a novice coming into this as someone who really hasn't spent that much time trying to make like ironclad cards and defect cards work in the same deck. I've bought Prismatic Shard certainly a few times and beaten Ascension 20 Heart with Prismatic Shard before, but it's going to be a little bit tough for me to talk in extreme depth about card rewards when I don't really know what I'm doing. And looking at this map also, it's difficult for me to say, can we go this way? Or are we going to die? When we get here, how likely is it that we'll need a campfire to heal versus being able to take another elite fight? These are things that I'm much, much less comfortable in making guesses about in a Prismatic Shard run than I would be in like just a standard Ironclad run, where I have a better idea of what sort of damage commons we can get and how things fit together. In order to make up for that, because I felt like I didn't want to cheat you. I made a spreadsheet with a little bit of information that we can look at with stuff that I do know about and that I haven't talked about that much in Overexplained runs before. So one thing that I have to look at is chance of rare cards dropping, which I think that trying to get 2 rare cards from fight rewards in Act 1 is a really big deal, and people probably don't know the math behind it and don't think about it that much. How rare cards work is that every time you see a common card, the chance of the next card you're showing in card rewards being a rare card goes up by 1%. And it starts at -2%, so you're not going to get many rare cards on the first floor, unfortunately. Unless you get a potion reward from the whale, because that generates card rewards in the background, because it simulates a floor ending, and you can actually... Anyway, weird bug in the game. You can get like 3 commons generated that you never actually see, and then get a rare on floor 1, potentially. If you go to an elite fight, you have a 10% higher chance of getting a rare card. And so this little graph here is showing you, let's get rid of Spire completely. We don't need that game. Spreadsheets only. This little graph here is showing you the chance of seeing at least 1 rare in an elite fight, the blue line, or a hallway fight, the red line, based on how many commons you've seen since the last rare generated in a card reward screen. And this is going to reset at the start of each act, for the simple reason that you are always showing a rare card when you kill a boss. Which means I believe that doesn't reset actually in Act 4. So the Act 4 elite fight, you may have a pretty high chance of generating a rare because you don't see a rare at the end of Act 3 boss fights. So one thing that I try to do is right around here is where the slope on your rare card generation from an elite fight starts to get much worse. And also the distance between elite fights and hallway fights starts to get a lot closer. So I think if you can try to like get 2 to 3 hallway fights, maybe even 4, and then an elite fight, try to grab your rare from the elite fight, and then start building up for another elite fight, that's generally going to be your best way of maximizing rares found in an act. And so looking at this map, for example, if we go like this way, get 3 hallway fights, take an elite fight, I think a problem with this path is that this elite fight is so soon that we won't have built up a rare chance for it yet. So this path would probably be significantly better, in my opinion, if these 2 hallway fights were before the elite fight. We could build up rare chance, then boom, hit it right there, and get out of the act. I don't have the ability to choose a path that does that exactly, so as always, we're just making the best of what we have. But it's something to be thinking about when you're pathing, is when was the last time I generated a rare? Like, how likely is it that a hallway fight gives me a rare? Because that may cause you to take a hallway fight over a question mark late in the act, for example. And also, can I go through the act in a way that gives me a good chance to get 2 rares by building up rare chance before an elite fight and hitting the rare there, and then building up rare chance again afterwards, and hitting it again at the next elite fight, perhaps. Anyway, I think that all works mathematically. Someone can write me like 3 paragraphs in the comments on the video if you think that that's not actually the most desirable way to go through the floors, because I'd actually be sort of interested in that. I feel like having spoken for 10 minutes, I should now feel somewhat obligated to actually play a fight. So far there hasn't been a decision, I don't think. Bash strike is always correct on turn 1. Turn 2, the decision of strike versus defend is like sort of real, but not particularly, because defend just gets you way too far behind, and I think you end up taking more damage than you need to. And against Bird Cultist, we get to defend here as Ironclad, and then bash strike next turn. I think that fight was probably even played optimally. Okay, so we got some gold from the fight. Awesome, always. We got a potion. I don't have the spreadsheet set up to track potion rewards, damn. But one thing that we can be thinking about is, let's put it on the screen. When you start an act, you have a 40% chance of dropping a potion from each fight. And every time you don't get a potion, the chance goes up by 10%. Every time you do get a potion, it goes down by 10%. At the end of the act, it will reset to 40% for the start of the next one. So right now, our potion chance started at 40%, then we spiked it on the first fight, and so at the moment it's down to 30%. And this can make a difference when you're deciding whether or not to use a potion in a fight. If you have like a 60% chance the fight will drop a potion, you're much more incentivized to use potions aggressively in that fight than if you only have a 20% chance the fight will drop a potion. Oh god. Oh no. Well, I think fortunately I get bailed out by Dash being here and don't have to think that hard for the first floor card reward. Dash is a very strong card early in the game. It tends not to be particularly strong late in the game. Early in the game, what you want to do is work out how to spend your energy well to attack and block every turn. And wow, does Dash make that easy for you, right? But later on in the game, you want to be thinking about how do I use my energy to scale my strength incredibly well, or take advantage of my strength being scaled incredibly well. How do I use my energy to draw cards that I can draw the best possible card for this turn? Maybe a Piercing Whale, if you're getting multi-attacked, could block for a tremendous amount more than a Dash is going to. How do I get down my powers like Well-Laid Plans, or Demon Form, or Corruption quickly? Feel No Pain. How do I exhaust toward a combo deck with True Grit? There are lots of much more powerful things you can do late game than generate damage and block. So Dash definitely falls off in the second half of the game, but at the start of the game, this is almost exactly the card that you're looking for. And so we can take it pretty comfortably. Flurry of Blows, not going to be great without stat swapping, although it's not terrible to deal 4 damage for 0 energy, just saying. Especially in an Ironclad deck, where a lot of our goal in Act 1 is to get better at dealing damage, and we start with a Bash, which means that we can often spend 3 energy on damage already every turn. For other characters, 0 cost attacks are a little bit less appealing because you don't start with a 2 cost attack, unless you're Watcher with Eruption, but Eruption sort of makes energy if you're in calm beforehand. And so for other characters, something like a 2 cost attack would often be better, so that you could spend 3 energy on attacks effectively in a turn. And 2 cost attacks are good for Ironclad too, but 0 cost attacks are better on Ironclad than other characters early, I would say, probably because of the existence of Bash, meaning that you can already spend 3 energy on attacks a lot of the time, and so if you're going to draw another attack, you often want it to cost 0, so that it's actually playable. That way it's not stopping you from playing a strike that you would have been able to play if you hadn't drawn it. Choosing between Question Mark and Hallway Fight here is a little bit interesting. So the way that Question Mark math works out, as we switch over to the spreadsheet again and look at Act 1 events, Mini K. Yeah, it's fine. This is a Slay the Spire video. Don't worry about it. The numbers aren't scary. They can't hurt you. The way that events work is that you have a chance to hit a monster fight, a shop, a treasure, or an event when you go into a question mark room. And that changes as you go through the act. So let's say we go into this question mark and it isn't a monster fight, and it isn't a shop, and it isn't a treasure. The next event that we go to is going to all of a sudden have a 20% monster chance, 6% shop chance, and 4% treasure chance. Where before, it only had 10%, 3%, and 2% for those. So as we go to events, the chance of them being things other than events goes up as we get events. And then if we do get a fight, so say we go to 2 events and it's neither of those things, none of those things, all of a sudden the third event that we're going to, which is going to be up here, right before the campfire and elite fight, it's going to be a 55% chance of an event, a 30% chance of a monster, 9% chance of a shop, and 6% chance of a treasure. Say we get the monster there. All of a sudden the monster chance resets to 10% for the next one, and event chance is back up to 75%. This is generally how things are working. You can find this spreadsheet below the video if you're curious about plugging things into it yourself, but another thing that I looked at in making this spreadsheet was I made a list of all of the events that occur in each act, and I just went ahead and put down some desirability ratings for the events between -3 and +3. I think for Act 1, since your deck is usually about the same sort of thing, it makes sense to have these desirability ratings that are basically set for like a default starter deck-ish, was my general idea. But if you're in like Act 3, where I did the same thing, in Act 3, like, how good these events are really depends on what your deck is and what it can do. So you may need to actually go through and update these desirability columns in Act 3 to represent what your deck is. But in Act 1, a general observation that I made with my desirability settings, which for me desirability meant about how many average floors would this event be worth. So a good event might be worth 2 average floors, a bad event might be worth negative average floors. An event which does nothing for you is probably worth 0 average floors. What I found was that events were not generally incredible in Act 1. I said that on average these events were worth maybe 0.7 of an average floor. So if we can fight hallway fights in Act 1, I would say generally we're excited to do that. The problem comes from the fact that hallway fights deal damage to us, elite fights deal damage to us, and also some of the events even deal damage to us. So as we're pathing through Act 1, we have to work out some way to get as much value out of the act without dying. And that's the big consequential thing that we're looking at when we're choosing between a hallway fight and a question mark on floor 2. The question mark is going to deal us less damage, probably, on average, than a hard hallway fight would. I'm not sure that it deals us less damage on average than an easy hallway fight would. And this one's an easy hallway fight. So the first 3 hallway fights of Act 1 are going to come from an easy pool. They're going to be generally pretty simple to do. After we've gotten 3, and that could be 1, 2, 3, or if these events are hallway fights, that could also be 1, 2, 3, and then this would be number 4. Once we're at hallway fight number 4, so maybe up here, that's coming from a hard hallway fight pool, and those hallway fights are much tougher and much more dangerous. So Act 1 becomes about, if you're good enough at hallway fights to do well in hard hallway fights, maybe you don't need to take many events at all, because Act 1 events are not particularly valuable. But if your deck isn't super great at hard hallway fights, and so, you know, taking them is going to kill you or force you to rest at campfires instead of upgrading or something like that, you may want to grab some Act 1 events. I think since we grabbed a dash on floor 1, in this run, taking the floor 2 hallway fight is even easier than usual. I think in general it's probably going to be correct to take the floor 2 hallway fight, because hallway fights are a little bit better at preparing us for elite fights early anyway, so let's take our early hallway fights before the elite fight so we can get some damage commons into our deck and go fight the elite with a deck that's a little bit more appropriate for elite killing, yeah. And then we can worry about the hard hallway fights later and maybe deviate from our path to take some events if the hallway fights are looking too scary. We got another potion, so currently our potion chance is at 20%. 2 very early potions means that the elite fight is a lot easier than it would usually be. And our card choice is between Stack, which can become a good card later on in the game, especially with Runic Pyramid, but is not a good card in any way right now. So it really is between Flying Sleeves, Sucker Punch, and Skip. I've never had a Flying Sleeves on Ironclad. I assume it's pretty good. Ironclad scales strength, has vulnerable, and likes to be able to choose to spend energy on damage on turns where he wants to, which is what Retain lets you do. Sucker Punch is also probably quite good. The damage half of it gets better with Bash, and the weak half of it is just great. Weak is something that's like pretty good in Act 1 against Lagavulin and Gremlin Knob, and then it just gets better and better and better as the game goes on, because enemies attack you for more and more and more, and so reducing the incoming damage by 25% means a lot more on floor 50 than it did on floor 3 when the damage was like, you know, 5 times less or whatever. So this is between Flying Sleeves and Sucker Punch. I'm not going to lie to you, I have never had to choose between Flying Sleeves and Sucker Punch on floor 2 as Ironclad before in my entire life. So this choice is going to be a guess, but I'm going to guess Flying Sleeves this time around. I think ability to apply weak is probably more widely available than ability to retain, and retain's a very nice thing to have. No relevant pathing considerations there. We had to go to this event, and note that the event is a hallway fight here, so revisiting our event chances, all of a sudden we just hit a hallway fight in our first event, but we haven't seen a shop and we haven't seen a treasure. So right now our next event is going to be 80% of the time an event, 10% a monster, 6% a shop, and 4% a treasure. You can see how this swaps around as the run goes on, and if you're not going to track it yourself, and I don't usually track it actively as I play runs, it can still at least be nice to have played like 1 or 2 runs where you're actively tracking it so that you sort of start to get a vague idea of how it looks as you go through an act. Alright, so no potion that time means that our potion chance is up to 30%. And we got a little bit of gold, and we have ourselves a card reward. And we're picking between Flying Knee, which deals 8 damage and next turn gains us an energy, Third Eye, which gains us 7 block and scries for 3, and Cleave, which deals 8 damage to all enemies. A very big moment in Act 1 of any Slay the Spire run is when you decide you have enough damage to kill the elites and you can afford to start taking some other cards. And like sometimes on Ironclad when you have a bash, like you can take a Shrug It Off on floor 1 and just assume that you're going to get enough damage because it's a class that's loaded with tons of damage. But like in a Silent run, it's really hard to take a backflip on floor 1 because Silent just doesn't have that many damage cards that are great against like Gremlin Knob and Sentries and Lagavulin. In this run, I think that probably we can already take Third Eye. And I think that Third Eye is probably a pretty valuable block card in whatever weird, bizarre thing we're going to end up building, because scrying for a particular effect seems like it's probably going to be more powerful when the number of particular effects we might have is 4 times as high, which is what's happening when our card pool expands by 4 times. So the scry looks more valuable than usual. The block is pretty good on Ironclad. Getting a hold of block cards early is like quite solid. Our Ironclad starter deck starts with 6 attacks and only 4 basic defense, so it's, I think, the most offensively minded starter deck, tied with Defect, which also has 6 attacks and 4 defense, although Dualcast can be used to evoke a Frost Orb later, so maybe it's even slightly more offensive than Defect. Obviously we have the card pools of all characters, so we're not going to end up playing an Ironclad deck by the end of the run, but right now we still have some considerations about the distribution of damage we have versus the distribution of defense, which make me think it would be cool to grab a third eye if I could. The only question for me is, can this deck beat sentries comfortably? We don't have any area of effect, and so grabbing an area of effect attack to beat the sentries fight probably seems like it makes a lot of sense. Just seems like a logical do this in order to solve that problem sort of statement. The sentries fight is very tricky though. I think it's by far the most complicated fight of Act 1. It often doesn't feel that complicated because a lot of the turns you play in it, you just play the cards that you drew and you draw like 3 dazes. But I think turn 2 and 3 are very complicated in the sentries fight. Often turn 1 is as well. There's this weird thing where you really want to have 15 cards to beat sentries because you would quite like to draw 3 hands with real cards in them and then reshuffle your draw pile with all 15 of your cards in your new draw pile. If you have 14 cards in your deck against sentries, you'll draw 2 hands with 5 cards in them, then you'll draw 4 cards and reshuffle your draw pile, and your draw pile will have 10 real cards and 9 dazes in it versus 15 real cards and 15 dazes. Unless you've killed one before it can add dazes. Anyway, sentries fight is weird, and AoEs aren't necessarily actually that great for it, because one of the biggest things in a sentries fight, if you can generate decent value over the later turns, which means if you have a metallicize or plated armor from something, or a power like Afterimage or something like that, one of the biggest things is killing the first sentry so that you're down to only getting attacked for 10 per turn for the rest of the fight. Even just having cards like Backflip in your deck can go a long way toward that. I think the dash that we have goes a long way toward making us good at fighting against 2 sentries once we kill the third one. So I don't really think that cleave is that important, because I don't think that AoE damage is actually necessary for this deck against sentries. We've already fought 3 hallway fights, so it is now time for a hard hallway fight if we choose to go to the left. We could go to the right, but we still get a hard hallway fight anyway, so it doesn't really solve too many problems for us. We could think about deviating to the right because it lets us kill a super elite, and believe that our potions and our dash make us strong enough to be killing a super elite at this time. The idea is like immediately appealing to me, because our potions are very strong and our dash is very strong, and our starter relic heals us for 6, so we can probably get to like here without resting and then decide if we can even take an extra elite. I think the downside is that one downside is that we don't get a question mark here, but we get a question mark here. So the last 4 floors are basically the same, 2 hallway fights and 1 question mark with a campfire. Comparing this path to this path, this is like all the same, except we have a question mark instead of a hallway fight, basically. They're very similar paths, ultimately. This one has like 1 more event, and this one has a super elite. So this becomes a question of how strong do we think our deck is. Because if we think we can kill the super elite, I think we should go right and kill the super elite right now. I think our deck's strong enough, probably, yeah. Let's go for it. Alright, so we have gotten the event Golden Idol in my little spreadsheet. If we want to, I don't know if I want to update it every single floor, but something that I can do is I can say, okay, there's one more floor since the last time we got a shop, treasure, or monster, so that changes our chances. We can also go down here and go to Golden Idol and say that's no longer unseen, so we can't generate that anymore, which increases the chance that any question mark will be the other events that can still generate. Also, I think the next time we go to a question mark will be above floor 7, so now we turn on mushrooms and Dead Adventure. Changes the desirability of events quite substantially. I have mushrooms and Dead Adventure both at high desirability, which is true if your deck can win those fights. Mushrooms is the one where you get a mushroom relic after fighting 3 rat mushroom fungus things, and Dead Adventure is the one where you find a Dead Adventure on the ground and then you can rummage for loot and risk fighting another elite fight. If you can win those floors, they're really good events. If you can't win them because you're going through a very difficult path with a super elite on it, maybe they're not so good. So maybe when we're looking at this desirability rating of 0.985 overall for events, we need to consider that like maybe these need to be 1 instead of 3 right now, which is something that we could change around as we went through stuff. Hopefully the game window hasn't been over too many important things on the sheet. I think it's generally okay. So anyway, that happened. We generally take Golden Idol here. One of the reasons that we take Golden Idol here is actually that over in Act 2, question marks are very good in Act 2. I have for like a default Act 2 average desirability of question marks at 1.438. Or desirability of events, rather. That's assuming that you got an event at them and not something else. And one of the events in Act 3... Where'd it go? Forgotten Altar. Forgotten Altar is not a good event if you don't have Golden Idol, but it's like a 3 desirability event if you do have Golden Idol. So in Act 2, you're likely going to be going to a lot of events, and I'm pretty sure it's Forgotten Altar. It's the one where you trade Golden Idol for Bloody Idol. You're likely to be going to a lot of events, and so you're going to roll lots of times to spawn this. It has a low spawn chance because Act 2 has lots of different events, but one of the reasons that we are generally happy to take Bloody Idol in Act 1 is so that that event will be better, because it's actually a very actively bad event if you don't have Bloody Idol usually. It offers you a decay or deals you a bunch of damage. So this is like one of the things that we do in Act 1 to prepare ourselves for a good Act 2 is take Golden Idol here. And it's always really appealing to smash when you're at max HP. But Karn HP is just so valuable in Act 1, and we have a very difficult path ahead of us. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sacrifice a lot of my chance to get 2 rare card rewards from this act. And I'm going to choose to probably not fight this elite. And I'm going to just pay current HP for this Golden Idol here. Because these 2 elites are in a row, there's a pretty decent chance that we wouldn't successfully get a second rare anyway. And that takes some of the value of fighting elites away. One of the big things about fighting elites is that chance to get an extra rare card. We lose out on a relic from this elite fight, perhaps. I'm not committed to not fighting the elite yet. It depends how these hallway fights go too. But we do save 7 max HP, which is sort of equivalent to picking up a strawberry. Anyway, I think it works out okay here. Our potion chance is still 30%, I think. Unless I missed something. We get to play Third Eye for the first time, that's fun. So this will be at 28, this will deal 12, plus 9 is 30 damage. So we just keep all of those. Easy fight. Get our gold. And our card reward here is Leap, Deflect, or Bane. Bane is a really interesting card on Silent. It's a damage common, which does okay, and then sometimes is actually really good if you can apply poison, but sometimes it's hard to apply poison. It seems like garbage here. Not sure that we'll want one of those in this spot. Leap and Deflect are both interesting. Leap is just a block card with a big number on it for 1 energy. It's a card that you are often pretty happy to add to your deck in Act 1, but which you're not usually that excited about in Act 3, and I think we already added a dash and a third eye, so we probably don't need to add a leap right now. Add cards when you need them, but don't add them when you don't need them is the general deck building principle of Slay the Spire. Deflect is a card which is a lot better on Silent, probably, because Silent has a bunch of backflips and acrobatics and footworks and after images, just lots of reasons that Deflect is a better card than it looks at face value than it is on Ironclad or on Prismatic Shard person, which I guess is what we're really playing. I think that Silent probably ends up having more card draw on average than Prismatic Shard person. It also definitely has more reasons why Deflect is good than Prismatic Shard person. So I think I'm actually just going to skip here. Skipping playable commons in Act 1 is pretty greedy, for what it's worth. I took, -2 damage net in that fight. So that's encouraging from maybe fighting 2 elites here. And looking at our upgrade at this campfire, we're always upgrading. We're not going to rest. We could maybe think about resting so we could fight 2 elites, but the thing is, getting an upgrade on floor 6, that upgrade's going to pay you dividends for the entire rest of the run. And is going to save you health just over and over and over again, pretty much every time you go into a fight from now until you die or win. So that just seems way more important than resting, and generally that's how stuff goes at the start of Act 1. You want to upgrade really bad. Just upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. Sometimes you're taking cards just so that you'll have something to upgrade if you've already gotten quite a few. The interesting choice here is Bash or Dash, I think. Bash or Dash. Getting 3 vulnerable instead of 2 vulnerable is a big deal. It might be a bigger deal than it seems at first to a new player, because it looks like it's only a 50% increase, but you have to keep in mind that when you play Bash, it costs you 2 energy. So you apply 2 vulnerable with Bash and have spent 2 energy. You only have 1 energy left that turn, and then 3 energy the next turn equals 4 energy total available to deal damage with 2 vulnerable applied. Whereas if you apply 3 vulnerable, you actually have 7 energy now. So it ends up being a 75% increase in energy available to deal damage with instead of a 50% increase. And if you also stipulate that maybe you want to spend 1 energy per turn defending, all of a sudden on turn 1 you have 0 energy and then 2 the next turn versus 4 total with 3 vulnerable. So you've actually doubled how much energy you get to spend while the enemy is vulnerable on attacks. So Bash is a very good early game upgrade generally. Dash is an upgrade that it's hard to say more about the Dash upgrade than it already says, I guess. This makes you have more block and damage when you play it. The most interesting thing probably about the Dash upgrade is that in the Sentries fight, you get attacked for 10 damage and don't get attacked for 13 damage, so the block is wasted in the Sentries fight, which often pushes me toward a different upgrade early game with Silent. But it's also worth noting that in the Sentries fight, the vulnerable just gets blocked by Artifact a lot of the time anyway. I'm going to go for the Bash upgrade. So far all of our damage is from attacks, and so the vulnerable should be pretty sweet. Did I upgrade my potion chance? Oh no. This is totally going to happen. I'm totally going to forget to update that as we go through the run. I'm just going to have to live with it, I think. I think that I didn't remember to update it, and so we're at 40% now. This is a common problem for Ironclad, and I guess also a current problem for Prismatic Shard person. We have a bash that we really want to play, but we also have a dash that we really want to play, and they both cost 2, and so we can't play both of them if we draw them both at the same time. So we gotta make a decision here. Do we want to perhaps dash Third Eye, take 0 damage this turn, but we're not really setting ourselves up for later all that well? Or we could bash. Sorry, it's gonna be hard to tell whether I'm saying dash or bash, isn't it? We could dash Third Eye, or we could bash Third Eye, basically. Is it worth 5 damage to us to apply 3 vulnerable here? I think it probably is not. But that's like a judgment call that I am making based on my time playing Slay the Spire. That's not a calculation that I made. I couldn't sit down and prove that to you with a calculator. That's one of the beautiful things about Slay the Spire to me, is I have played so much of it, and I still walk into a fight on floor 7 and can tell you like 2 or 3 different things that I think might be right, but regularly I can't tell you which of those 2 or 3 things actually is the right one. Double strike flying sleeves, or 2 defends and a strike, I guess, would be our decision here. We could also use the attack potion on this turn. It would be a lot better if we'd used vulnerable earlier though. If we go double strike flying sleeves, we end up with 2 slimes at 32 health, and it's pretty hard for us to deal 32 damage. I think it's better to use the fact that we have a flying sleeves to try to get a good split on this enemy. Take less damage here. Look to maybe play bash this turn. Nope, no luck. And then split with flying sleeves the next turn, but looks like we're getting weakened. In this fight, we have to put this at 34 health for it to split. So now, for example, a bash flying sleeves would split it. We are weakened, unfortunately, this turn, but we could still put it to... This is going to hit for 4 twice if we vulnerable. So we could put it to 25. And we have a dash into strike next turn, which is a pretty strong next turn. Or the other option is to go Third Eye, defend, strike, puts it at 36, and then like next turn we can dash strike, and the turn after we won't be weak anymore, and we can use like maybe bash flying sleeves that turn in order to kill one of them. I think I slightly prefer that. Let's draw a Sender's Bane next turn. I don't see much reason not to. Slime's beating us up. We drew bash now, unfortunately. I mean, I guess it's fine, but I wanted to draw it next turn probably so that I could use it in conjunction with another attack. I think now I actually have to use an attack potion, unfortunately. This fight's gone very poorly for us. Maybe our deck's just very bad. I don't know. I don't know how good our deck is at all. So Liquid Memories works. We can go dash strike strike to kill one of them in Third Eye and take no damage. I think that's what we'll go for. I think the attack potion is probably a little bit more valuable for fighting elites than the Liquid Memories is. The Liquid Memories is regularly going to get a bash plus or a dash, but the attack potion should be able to get something even better than that. And now that one of the slimes is dead, at least we're free for the rest of the fight. Potion chance goes up to 50%. Biased cognition? Well, that's interesting. Bias Cognition would be a, like, Windmill Slam, very happy pick with Defect. But with Prismatic Shardman, it's much less clear that that would be good in any way. I actually think the interesting card here is Fusion. Fusion could be quite useful in the Lagavulin fight, quite useful in the Act 1 boss fight against Hexaghost. Just makes us 1 energy per turn for the rest of the fight after we play it, mostly. It's like a Berserk if Berserk cost energy but didn't make you vulnerable on the turn you played it. Which is not that good. I think I would take a Fusion Plus here, perhaps, but I'm not going to be taking an unupgraded one. What's Blazor rating in chat? It's Blazor rate. Turn the chat off. So Charge Battery is also an okay card. We already took a Third Eye. Something that you're trying to do with your deck is you're trying to get enough general output into it in order to kill things. And then you're trying to swing it into being able to scale up enough to kill bosses. And so you want to add a card like Charge Battery to your deck if it's going to help you meaningfully in doing things like surviving in Act 2 hallway fights instead of dying in Act 2 hallway fights, or beating the early fights in the game without too much damage. But then you like really don't want to be adding it to your deck anymore by the time you're thinking about how am I going to kill the heart, how am I going to kill Time Eater, stuff like that, because this card just doesn't really help you in any way to do those things. We're probably still in a spot on the run where we want better cards in our deck. So I guess I'll take it. Don't really know. Usually I can rely pretty heavily on my intuition to play this game, but we're not currently in a situation where I feel like I can do that at all. We've got a decent amount of block going on in our deck now. Probably want to err away from taking more block cards than we already have just to make sure that we have enough damage, and we really need to find some sort of scaling damage for the Hex Ghost fight, or else we're just going to die there. I'm going to go ahead and upgrade Flying Sleeves. I did skip the Elite fight. I guess I didn't talk about that at all, but I think with 41 health and only an attack potion left, we don't really have the ability to fight the Elite anymore. I like the Flying Sleeves upgrade here because Dash doesn't necessarily do anything extra against sentries in particular. Flying Sleeves deals 4 extra damage instead of 3 extra damage, so it's a good damage upgrade against Lagavulin and Gremlin Knob. And generally the biggest thing against Act 1 elites is making sure that you can deal good damage. We got a Potion Belt, which we're certainly going to pick up, but we're a little bit upset that that doesn't actually do anything for us immediately, since we have an elite fight that we have to survive here. We have a plus strength sentries fight. This is the exact situation where the dash upgrade actually would do extra stuff if the sentries have strength, but that's okay. Our attack potion gives us an immolate or a bludgeon, which is almost an interesting choice. If Immolate dealt like 5 less damage, I think this would be an interesting choice between the single target damage or the area of effect damage, but Immolate just deals so much damage here that I think we have to take it. Probably the big breakpoint there is when we become uncertain that we can kill one of the outer sentries before it attacks us on turn 2, we probably start thinking about taking Bludgeon from that reward pick, but when we're in a situation where we're confident that we can always kill that outer sentry, we don't have to think about that. We can think about this turn and next turn, checking your draw pile and also your discard pile and your exhaust pile. Just constantly knowing which cards are where as you go through fights is really important in this game. So we can look at our draw pile, which is only 5 cards, and see exactly what our hand is next turn. Note that we ended up with 15 cards for the sentries fight, which is a breakpoint that I was talking about earlier. I would certainly like to be able to kill this 20 HP sentry before it hits me next turn, and 3 strikes doesn't currently do that. So I think the right play is to go bash defend here and hold on to Flying Sleeves so that I can go Flying Sleeves, strike to kill it next turn. It takes me an extra 5 damage this turn over the Flying Sleeves defend line, but I think it sort of makes up for that by ending the fight so much faster. With 12 damage incoming every turn, we expect to take quite a lot of damage if this fight like goes significantly longer. So with this situation, we ended up with 3, 6, 9, 11, 12. 12 dazes in our draw pile of 28 cards, one of which is a burn, one of which was an immolate. Just a thing to take note of. Ceramic fish is not a very good relic here. And we also missed a potion, so we've had some fairly bad rewards recently in this act. Picking between Cloak and Dagger, Sneaky Strike, and Charge Battery. At this point, there's nothing in the deck that synergizes with Cloak and Dagger, or with Sneaky Strike or Charge Battery, and we really have to beat Hexaghost somehow. So I think we don't get to take any of these cards. Even if they were like a little bit good, I think that adding a card that waters the deck down away from the like Rampage or Spot Weakness or whatever card it is that we do manage to find to beat Hexaghost with, that's a significant cost right now. Because the Hexaghost fight is going to be, it's going to be iffy. It's going to be iffy at best. So I don't think we get to take any of these cards, and that's the main thing on my mind at the moment, is how are we going to beat Hexaghost. And because of that, I'm actually going to take advantage of something that I didn't talk about at all when I was choosing between this left and right path. But one thing that the right path does is you can actually choose to take a store here. We give up a campfire entirely, which is really okay because we don't have a card that's good to upgrade in our deck in particular, so whatever. I ended up going this way and probably taking an event over a hallway fight. If we look at what events do exactly right now in Act 1, what we can think about doing is editing events for only, like, do they help us beat Hexaghost? So Big Fish really doesn't, Cleric really doesn't, Dead Adventurer significantly does, I think. I think we can win those elite fights, so I would say it significantly does. Maybe put it at 2. Golden Idol has already spawned. Living Wall. Is that the one that upgrade? I think that upgrade transforms or removes a card. It's probably like a 1, and we might have to transform at it. Mushrooms probably don't really help in any way. Scrap Ooze is terrible. Shining Light is quite bad. I don't think we could take it. The Serpent is... we would skip that. Wing Statue, World of Goop. I do have an event lookup here, so we can work out what Wing Statue actually is. Wing Statue is pray to remove a card. Alright, yeah, that doesn't seem super great. Oh, I didn't turn off chat on this screen. Uh-oh. And then the Act 1 Shrine events. Shrine events are less common than regular events. I believe I'm correct here that if you get an event, it's 0.75 probability to be a non-shrine and 0.25 probability to be a shrine. But Bonfire Spirits wouldn't help in any way. Divine Fountain wouldn't help in any way. Face Shader doesn't help. Golden Shrine doesn't help. Lab could help. Lab gives us potions. Match and Keep could help. Note for Yourself is irrelevant. Ominous Forge gives us the Warped Tongues. That's very good. Purifier removes a card, doesn't help. Transmogrifier transforms a card, might help. Upgrade Shrine might help a little bit. Maybe. Actually, this one should probably be higher. We Meet Again could give us a relic at the moment, which could help quite a lot. Wheel of Change could give us a variety of positive outcomes. Could also stab us, and the Woman in Blue would let us remove a card or heal. So that's where I'm at with events, and events seem really bad. is what my analysis is suggesting to me. Alright. So, this event is basically not very valuable at all. When we get to here, we may just go ahead and choose to take another fight, because the event just doesn't seem like it's going to help very much. Looking at the store, I guess another thing that I didn't think about is we get ironclad only relics and don't get relics that are only for other classes. So there's a self-forming clan here, which we can't afford anyway. Battle Trance I think is quite helpful, and Strength Potion is quite helpful, but that's sort of all we got. We could take a Blind. Seems like a bit much. I think I'll take an Upgrade Potion as well. And Card Remove. Stores are very complicated. You have a ton of options, right? I think we can just rule out like all of these sort of immediately. Generally the colorless options, I think it's easy to overvalue these. They cost 0 energy, but like a goal in this game is to spend your energy on powerful effects. And so like the fact that a card costs 0 energy isn't necessarily a great thing. If this Blind was like a 3 energy card that did a really, really good job of stopping incoming damage, that would be more appealing to me for 98 gold than a 0 energy card that sort of does an okay job of stopping incoming damage. If it was a Wraith form for 98 gold, yeah, then I'd buy it for sure. But this card is just like not very impactful. Chrysalis is way too expensive. So you can sort of rule out these ones very quickly, which is what I did. And then looking at the relics, 2 of them were too expensive and Hand Drill doesn't do anything, so we can rule out those. All that's really left is the Battle Trance, which is an excellent block card, the potions, which are relevant for the Hexaghost fight, and now we're down to choosing between a weak potion, which is also relevant for the Hexaghost fight. We have 60% potion chance right now in terms of chances to fill out the potion belt without buying this, or a Card Remove, which is very relevant for next act. Getting rid of strikes as you go into late game is a really big deal. As you go into late game, your problem is less and less having enough energy to do things, and more being able to draw the thing that you have to do each turn. And late in the game, certain turns really require that you scale up your strength, certain other turns really require that you spend all of your energy on block, certain other turns require that you spend all of your energy on damage. And so being able to draw enough cards from your complex, multifaceted Slay the Spire deck as you go into Act 3 and 4 is a really, really, really big deal, and strikes are just never cards that you want at that point in the run. So removing strikes, and on Watcher also removing defends probably, is a really big deal in this game. And I think we're somewhat likely to die to Hexaghost, like maybe 40%. Maybe. I don't know, because I don't have a great sense for what the rewards of these fights might be. But we're also incredibly likely to die in Hec 2 if we get past Hexaghost, so yeah. Yeah, I think I'm alright with doing it this way. Interesting turn. We could dash Third Eye. I think this blue Slaver fight, the Slaver doesn't scale up damage in any way, so if your deck is good at blocking, you can often get through the fight without taking any damage. So I think that's what I'm going to go for. I think that the deck ends up being good at blocking. Compared to what a usual Ironclad deck looks like, this deck is incredibly good at playing block cards. On floor 12. And one more turn. Gotta draw the bash with the flying sleeves, I guess. Got it. So we actually healed for 6 there. We get a potion. Keep in mind the decision not to buy the weak potion and instead to remove the card did take potion chance into account there. That was a thing that I cared about while making the decision, so keeping track of all these little things can definitely help you out to win a run. These cards are not scaling damage really, unless you think Claw is scaling damage, which is just the most ambitious belief ever. I believe I'm going to take a Hemokinesis, and with a Strength Potion and an Upgrade Potion and an upgraded Bash, maybe we'll be able to deal most of the damage to Hexaghost just by paying 1 and 2 for attack cards. Hemokinesis deals a lot more damage than Claw does. It might look appealing to take a Claw because it scales and stuff, but by the time that Hexaghost is killing us, we're only gonna have played Claw like at maximum 3 times with this deck. So just is much less appealing than Hemokinesis, especially when we could upgrade Hemokinesis, right? I think I didn't even really talk about Ceramic Fish. This relic is generally not very good, I guess. It gives us a little bit of gold, though. It makes us slightly more inclined to take cards instead of skipping, but not by a huge amount. Double Fungi Beast. This fight often becomes about understanding that the Fungi Beasts that attack you may buff next turn. And looking at the AI on these enemies real quick, because these are important ones to understand the AI on, I would say. I'm looking at the Slay the Spire reference doc, which was put together by Quinkunks, aka Forgotten Arbiter, and it's a very good resource. You can just Google Slay the Spire reference doc and see all of this yourself. The Fungi Beasts for the first 4 turns. Nope, I was reading Giant Head. The Fungi Beast has a 60% chance of bite, but cannot use bite 3 times in a row or buff twice in a row. So, bite is obviously the name of the attack. So if something's attacked you twice in a row, it's always going to buff the next turn. If something's buffing, it's always going to attack you the next turn. And other than that, it's got a 60-40 split, which is close enough to 50-50 that probably just thinking about it as 50-50 is good enough. And so a lot of this fight is working out how to engineer situations where you can kill one of them, which makes you vulnerable, of course, and spends a bunch of energy on attacks, but do so on a turn where you're not getting attacked by the other one, and then be prepared to block the incoming attack from the other one, or maybe even kill it on the turn after that. So we were able to block that incoming attack, and we have enough damage to kill this next time. It ends up being a pretty manageable fight, and sometimes it's quite interesting as well to try to work out what exactly you're going to do in it. Potion chance up to 60% here, and we do still have an empty potion belt slot. I think we said that events were not very useful in order to successfully beat Hexaghost, and we still don't have enough damage to beat Hexaghost, I wouldn't say. I'm going to take Shrug It Off because it's a good block card, and we probably still need a bit of help to survive Act 2 over Dagger Spray, which would be decent AoE and decent scaling with Strength Pod, though. No, actually, let's take Dagger Spray so we can beat Hexaghost. Both Shrug It Off and Dagger Spray seem slightly better than skipping to me here. And having looked at the value of events and also just looking at how much health I have right now, I think we just go for another hallway fight. I haven't been keeping track exactly of my rare chance, but I believe it's somewhat high right now. I believe that we've probably generated, in this elite fight plus these 2 hallway fights, on average you generate 2 commons per, if you don't get a rare. So we've probably generated about 6 of those, which means that we have an 11.5% chance of getting a rare from a hallway fight, which is not bad. I wonder how often rares are actually useful for Prismatic Shard, man. Because last time we got a biased cognition, you know? So at this point I've been burned before. I guess the interesting thing this turn is whether we play Third Eye or Dash. Or both. We can go Strike, Strike, Third Eye. We could go Dash, Strike, or we could go Dash, Third Eye? We could also go Dash, Third Eye. These red louse are always going to attack us the turn after they buff. This green louse is also always going to attack us the turn after it buffs, so we will get attacked a lot next turn, and we're also going to be weak. So if we strike this, it still has 5 health, and our strikes only deal 4 damage, so we're not going to be able to kill it very easily next turn. So I think the ideal next turn would be drawing enough damage to finish killing this one, and drawing enough block to block the 2 other incoming attacks. And looking at these enemies for real for a second. The red louse is going to deal randomly between 9 and 11 damage after buffing its strength. And the green louse is going to deal randomly between 5 and 7 damage next turn. And neither, yeah, they can't. At lower ascensions, they could actually buff or debuff us again next turn, but at this ascension, where the enemy AI gets tougher, they're always going to be attacking us next turn. So we're getting attacked for, at minimum, 14 and at maximum 18 next turn. And we're going to be weakened. I think what we can do is we can start with Third Eye. Okay, there's our Dagger Spray. Dagger Spray, I think, makes everything a lot easier. In fact, do those cards just solve our problem without needing to even think anymore? I think they do. All we have to do is go Strike, Strike here. And then doesn't matter that I'm weakened. I have enough damage to kill those, and I have the charge battery to block the 7, which was the maximum possible damage that the green louse could be attacking us for. So we got through that fight without taking damage. We did actually find another potion. We got a Snecko oil though, so it's not a very useful potion for killing Hexaghost. And we have another rare as well, although it's an unload. So again, not a very useful card for killing Hexaghost. Crush Joints is a little bit interesting. I think it becomes much worse on classes which aren't Watcher because they don't start with a miracle, so they don't have a skill that retains in their opening hand that you can use to make that apply vulnerable whenever you want. Unload's not terrible against Hexaghost though. The fact that it discards burns is actually a really big deal for surviving later on in the fight. It's just a big damage card, which is, you know, unexciting, but okay. If we take Unload here, we really do have to play Bash every time we draw it. If we take Crush Joints, we can keep Vulnerable up on the enemy a little bit more convincingly. We could also upgrade Crush Joints and have 5 Vulnerable total in our deck, which could be a pretty nice thing to have. Make sure that this enemy is vulnerable. I think I like that the most, just barely. Favoring the Crush Joints over the Unload. The fact that it applies Vulnerable does sort of matter for later on in the game too. The fact that it can delete an artifact charge to let you apply something that's more important, like a Talk to the Hand or a Malaise or something like that, means that it does a little bit more than just being an attack. Whereas the Unload, discarding all your non-attack cards, I would say sometimes it lets you discard a curse or a status and it's good for you, but a lot of the time you have like a Runic Pyramid or a Well-Laid Plans or maybe a Scroll that you want to play after you play other cards or something like that, and so discarding all your non-attack cards is actually a drawback a significant amount of the time too. Try a Crush Joints. I can definitely get away with upgrading here because it makes me more likely to win the next fight than resting. And then for every subsequent fight, it's also better. But I'm not really sure about this. Everybody. It may be only an hour long over-explained run. Well, it's already an hour and 8 minutes, so it's already longer than that. I apologize if so, but we will do our best. That's all we really can do. We do have the upgrade pot, so which card we choose to upgrade is a little bit less relevant, because there's a decent chance that we can upgrade the important cards with upgrade pot no matter what. I'll go for Crush Joints. And we need to keep in mind that we have a Crush Joints upgraded and make sure that when we're playing skills and attacks in the same turn, and it doesn't matter which order we play them in, we need to make sure that we play them in the order which leaves us with Crush Joints active on the next turn. Let's go Blessing of the Forge now. these are good enough cards to want to upgrade, I think. Let's grab Strength Potion now as well. And the question now is Strike Plus or Charge Battery Plus. How often does a 4th energy do more than a Strike Plus? A 4th energy next turn needs to do more than a Strike Plus this turn. So if we draw Bash and Dash, that would definitely be the case, I would say. Oh, another thing is that we make Crush Joints work if we play Charge Battery, so there's slightly more to the decision. This is one of those decisions where I can tell that there are two sensible things to do, but can't tell which one is better, and I'm just going to have to accept that for right now, I think. Certainly doing this stuff, and then, I mean, honestly, I could flip a coin between Charge Battery or Strike. Let's try out Strike, and my reasoning is that I have a Strength pot, and also I have 54 health. So Hexacoast is the only enemy in the game who changes how much it attacks for. Which changes how much it attacks for? Based on your health. If you have more health, it attacks you for more damage on turn 2. If you have less health, it attacks you for less damage on turn 2. So we're getting attacked for 30 here. I think it's a great time for Distilled Chaos. I think just about everything that we hit here is going to be useful this turn, whether we are applying vulnerable or blocking or dealing damage. This is a turn where all of those things achieve something. And Dash seems pretty obvious to me, and we desperately want to Flying Sleeves here over Strike. Maybe it would, like always, obviously be correct to do that to you, but also we're about to make a new draw pile, and we want to try to play our Flying Sleeves plus every time we shuffle our draw pile, since it's one of our highest damage cards. Okay, 3 potions invested. Let's see how this goes. Crush Joints does seem a bit better than Bash here, but I guess the problem is that we're such... No, I think we have to Bash. We're such a long way away from reshuffling our draw pile again. We'll run out of vulnerable if we choose to Crush Joints there. And we're not going to Third Eye, we're just going to Strike again. Our block for this fight is our health bar. Uh-oh. Somewhat interesting consideration whether or not to play Battle Trance here. The downside of playing Battle Trance is that we have 4 cards out of this draw pile that don't go into our next draw pile. If we don't play Battle Trance, we draw 5 cards in this draw pile, and then we draw the last 2 cards and 3 cards in a new one. But I think these cards are mostly basic cards. I think we are okay. Yeah, so Hemokinesis won't be in our next draw pile, but that's alright. And also probably playing Dagger Spray is better than playing Dash? So here we go, Dagger Spray, Flying Sleeve, so it's in our next draw pile, I think? And Charge Battery? Maybe you could argue for Strike over Flying Sleeves, with the thought being that you didn't really need to draw Flying Sleeves another time since we've dealt so much damage already. It looks like we're going to be fine in this fight. I may have underestimated how many damage commons we have. And also the Strength pot's done great and the vulnerable's done great. That ended up being easy. Wow. So sometimes my intuition is just going to be miles off because I'm playing a deck that looks nonsensical to me and I don't have any like history to draw on with understanding how much this deck does. But I guess a lot of that was just upgraded damage cards plus a vulnerable plus that Strength pot that we had. Dealt a good amount of damage, and I was very respectful of Hexaghost with like picking up Hemokinesis and so on. Our choices from the Act Boss are Limit Break, Lesson Learned, and Core Surge. That is fascinating. I don't have any strength, and I don't have much reason to care about an artifact charge at the moment, other than preventing debuffs, which is great. But Lesson Learned certainly seems like a good card. Lesson Learned is sort of always a good card. Our potion chance returns to 40% for the start of the next act. Lesson Learned is a little bit interesting. It requires that we're good at winning hallway fights for it to be useful. If we're going to go through an act by choosing to avoid hallway fights at all costs, go to like question marks with a Juicer bracelet and campfires or something like that, Lesson Learned really isn't that great a card, right? And our deck isn't that good. But despite that, I think that Lesson Learned is certainly better than skipping and better than the other two rare rewards there. We still have no scaling really available to us, and very little damage output. Alright. So our 3 boss relic options, I'll just talk about them one at a time here. Sacred Bark doubles the effectiveness of potions. Sacred Bark is quite good. And there are a lot of runs where as you go into Act 2, you are concerned about dying in like probably the first half of Act 2, and you have good potions in your belt because you were able to beat Guardian even though your deck's not strong enough to beat some of the Act 2 hallway fights yet. In a situation like that, Sacred Bark can be a really good pickup just to ensure that you don't die to that thing. And sometimes your deck like might have a demon form in it or something like that, so you're not actually that worried about the Act 2 boss fight. And then you can get to Act 3, get a 4th energy from your Act 2 boss reward, and be set for the rest of the run. And Sacred Bark looks especially good with Potion Belt, but it doesn't look great when you have no potions in your Potion Belt, which we don't. So maybe if I had correctly identified that we were doing pretty well in the Hexaghost fight and not used quite as many potions, we could be taking a Sacred Bark here, but I think in this situation, Sacred Bark is not quite doing enough compared to the other things. Ectoplasm gives us a 4th energy at the start of our turn, which is great. This deck is somewhat okay at spending 4 energy per turn and will only get better. We didn't take a bunch of 0-cost cards. We do have 1 Battle Trance to draw extra cards, and we have a 3rd eye to look for the premium cards that we want to play as well. We have a Dash, which costs 2 energy. So we have plenty of reason to care about 4 energy. It's not a sensible default to have that every deck needs 4 energy for what it's worth. I think especially Watcher decks don't always need 4 energy, and you can play other runs with like Silent and Defect in particular where a 4th energy isn't that important going into Act 2. But this is such a situation where Prismatic Shardman does seem to need a 4th energy. You can no longer gain gold, kills 2 of our 4 relics, and is generally a very bad drawback at Ascension 20 when you're going for the heart. The longer that you're going to play a run for, the larger a drawback is that you can't gain gold. And especially going through Act 3, sometimes there are floors where you can like pick up 300 gold by trading your golden idol away and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a very significant downside. So I'd probably go like least appealing Sacred Bark, second least appealing Ectoplasm. Both of these are better than skipping. And then best for me here is Fusion Hammer. Gain energy at the start of your turn. You can no longer smith at rest sites. It does suck a little bit to not be able to smith at rest sites. Even though you have a lesson learned, you're still going to have some high priority upgrades that you really would like to get. It's a bit of a luxury to think that we will ever be able to do anything other than rest at rest sites for the rest of this run until we die though right now, I would say. Like our deck's just not very strong, our relics aren't any good, we don't have potions. We're probably going to be resting at rest sites, which means that this drawback isn't quite as big a deal. And we do have the lesson learned, so even though we are unable to smith at rest sites, we still can get a good number of upgrades into our deck. Probably this won't be a run where we upgrade every card, because we're not that good at playing the lesson learned in fights, but you know, we can sometimes upgrade cards, so that's cool. Big thing about Act 2, and I think I talked about this earlier, is that in Act 2, events tend to be very good. Looking at these Act 2 events, I have them on average at being almost 1.5 floors each. And I have Things like Ancient Writing, which upgrades all of your strikes and defends. The Colosseum, which is only available in the second half of the act for what it's worth, so it's not being considered yet even. Apparitions, Masked Bandits, which is a fairly easy hallway-ish fight, which gives you a relic and a card reward and some gold. I have all of these at 3 floors apiece. Maybe Masked Bandits should only be 2 for this deck, because it's going to deal us a chunk of damage as well, but there are some really good events. Isn't Forgotten Altar in this run? I think that's actually a 3. That's even better. So we really want to go to events in Act 2 is basically what I'm saying. Forgotten Altar, I believe, is the name of the event where you trade Red Mask, or you trade Golden Idol for Bloody Idol, which heals you every time you gain gold, which is one of the only ways that Ceramic Fish is ever a good relic, is if you also have Bloody Idol. All of a sudden it's actually a significant amount of sustain as well. So one of the priorities going through this act is going to be to get question marks. We also are not very good at killing elites, for what it's worth, so that makes the decision a lot easier. We don't have to think that hard about, like, oh, what if I'd like to kill an elite instead? It's like, well, the elite will kill us, probably, so maybe we don't have to worry about that. If we get some good potions, we'll be able to kill 1 elite, maybe 2. But looking at this act path, I don't see a sensible way to get elite fights anyway. And I think probably the way we're going to go is this way, which there may be some thinking here exactly. Which gives us a good number of events and avoids things which are likely to immediately kill us. And then we get to fight Hyper Beam, and Hyper Beam Man is probably one of the easier boss fights for this deck in particular. Welcome to Act 2, take 16. We could potion already. I think I'm going to potion already. Alright, so these cards change cost with Sneck Oil for the entire rest of the fight. It's going to be hard to play Crush Joints in this fight, but particularly easy to play Bash. Currently playing the Strike. Shield Parasite has plated armor, and every time you deal damage to it, the plated armor is reduced by 1. You actually stun it as well if you remove all of the plated armor, which I don't think we'll be doing, but Hemokinesis versus Dagger Spray, I think, is made a clear Dagger Spray by the fact that that removes plated armor from Shield Parasite. And it's also worth pointing out that it's important to play Dash first here, so that we break the armor entirely and take a plated armor off before we play something like Flying Sleeves or Strike, which is not going to get through the armor immediately just by itself. Let's see. Flying Sleeves or Strike. I think it was okay to play the defend there. Not being able to weaken this enemy sort of sucks. Let's go for a Flying Sleeves. Flying Sleeves or Strike. It's a tough one. We're getting hit by this for 21 again. Hopefully this Battle Trance draws me... Let's see, this is 18 damage plus 15 plus 15 would be 48. There's a significant chance that this Battle Trance can draw me lethal damage. I could Third Eye first, because I have 4 energy. But it turns off Bash plus Dash. So if I did that, it's like down to Hemokinesis type stuff. Another thing is, I may want to actually Lesson Learned if I draw good block cards. So yeah, I think in this situation, we're actually sort of okay with taking a bit of damage here and trying to Lesson Learned next turn. Although it costs 3. So oh shoot, I think I was actually meant to Third Eye instead of Charge Battery and not Charge Battery at all. Maybe it's okay. We have 5 energy next turn. Cool, we drew a Bash. So we can go bash Flying Sleeves, lesson learned, and get the kill. This is 12, 22, 37. That works great. Some really interesting turns in there. Not sure I played every single one of them right. A lot of people ask me, like, hey Jorbs, I'm stuck on Ascension 18. Are there any overall tips you could give me to, like, what's the last thing I need to add to my game, I guess, if I'm stuck at Ascension 18 and can't quite get to Ascension 20? And the answer, unfortunately, is that, like, the big concepts that you could grasp, you probably already did if you've made it to Ascension 18. At this point, there's no one big thing to add. It's like 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 small things. And so being able to, like, calculate out those turns in this fight and work out how am I getting an upgrade exactly, how am I taking the least damage possible, it makes a significant difference. There are a good number of runs of Slay the Spire where you can go down below 5 health and then come back to win. And if you took 5 extra damage earlier in the act, well, instead you just die. So turning losses into wins is a lot about just tiny, tiny improvements. That said, we're looking at Tantrum, Empty Fist, and Deflect. Tantrum is a very strong card, and I am not sure that we get to take it in a run where it's very hard to guarantee that we will ever be able to leave Wrath if we take this card. Unfortunately. I think that probably we have to not take that, and we have to look for other ways to deal large amounts of damage late in the run, which it feels like it should be possible to find ways to do that. There are so many strong interactions plausible between 4 characters worth of cards. Something like After Image Juggernaut, for example, would be incredibly powerful. But we're going to have to find those cards if we're going to benefit from those things, and so far we haven't found them. I think we do probably let the Tantrum go, though. Empty Fist is a little bit interesting, because we could take Empty Fist, and then the next time we were offered Tantrum, we could take it. But I think it's very unlikely that we, like, see another Tantrum. If we're going to do stuff with Watch Your Stances, it's more likely that we're doing something with Worship or Blasphemy, I would say. Just play every card this turn. I'm trying to generally focus more on the larger concepts, and maybe an interesting exercise for you as a viewer would be to look through these turns and open a spreadsheet and do some math and try to work out if you could have found a better line through some of these turns, because some of them are pretty complicated. Battle Trance, Defend, Dagger Spray, Strike, Strike. I could play every card in my hand except for Battle Trance, and I'd only put 1 daze in my draw pile. It just seems like we're spending a lot of energy on strikes and defends, and those aren't very good though. Yeah, I think we want to look for cards that are better than strike and defend to play here. Alright, I think that we always bash. Let's grab a quick look at Chosen AI, just so I can tell you exactly what this does with 100% confidence. We are fighting against the Chosen. The Chosen can poke you for 6 times 2 damage, zap you for 21 damage, debilitate you for 12 damage, and vulnerable. I had no idea that these attacks were called these things. That's funny. I like those names. So we will take 12 damage and be vulnerable next turn. We're not going to be weak. It would have to have drained us for us to become weak. We're already hexed. What's the chance that we get a big attack next turn? Then alternates between using either Debilitate or Drain and using either Zap or Poke. So it's always going to be an attack next turn. And it's 40% to be the really big attack. What I'm thinking about doing here is playing Hemokinesis Dagger Spray. So we won't be weak next turn. This puts it at 28, and it's at 16. We don't add dazes to our deck. And we will usually be able to lesson learn it next turn that way. We want to have it at a less than 24, I would say. This puts it at 28. Yeah, so I think I want to spend 2 energy on attacks then. This also puts it at 28. 24, let's just go lesson learned strike. And yeah, we take 12 damage here, but that's okay. Drawing the dash, we could have left it at 28, but just getting out of the fight before this attack lands is the main big thing, right? So I believe that sacrificing some value on the turns where we draw both dash and lesson learned there is correct to ensure that we can escape. I'm gonna loop crush joints or go for the eyes plus. Being able to apply weak is very valuable. Go for the eyes plus is not a premium source of weak, I wouldn't say. It's not a malaise, it's not a crippling cloud, it's not... Did I say malaise yet? It's not malaise. It's not leg sweep. It's not a wave of the hand, although we don't have the ability to really make wave of the hand good yet. So there are better ways to apply weak than go for the eyes, but at this point in the run, I think we're very happy to be taking it. Loop would have been sort of interesting if we took fusion earlier. We could have had 2 extra energy per turn off a loop and a fusion. Would have been a really weird run. Like build your own Deva form, except the Deva form isn't very good. And I think it's pretty clear from what I've talked about earlier that grabbing question marks here is going to be more appealing than going to hallway fights. This is one of the okay question marks, to be sure. This will only be ironclad cards, I think. And I think it's pretty clear that we don't want to be healing for 15 when we have a fusion hammer and we're going to this campfire almost every time. Also going to the elite fight. Could go to the elite fight. If we get good potions in the store, we may fight an elite here. In which case it may have been good to heal, but I think reading, we can maybe look for like a Juggernaut would work very well with the ways that other classes block, potentially. And an Inflame would work very well with the attacks that we have. A Spot Weakness similarly would work very well. Another Battle Trance would be great. Even cards like True Grit could be quite valuable. Combust could be quite good. Whoa, it does give me all of the characters cards. Well, that's cool. There's an Apotheosis here. Okay, well this is going to be the most difficult library that I've ever seen in my life. Don't think Dodge and Roll has much to recommend it. Don't think Melter has that much to recommend it. Battle Hymn? Interesting. The fact that we can't go into Wrath, I think, makes the smites a little bit less appealing, but that's definitely like on my first pass over list of okay options. Halt, no, not really interested. Slice, not really interested. Cleave, we still don't have AoE, so it's better than you want it to be in Act 2. Ideally, I'd have like an Immolate or a Combust or something like that in my deck. I guess I have a Dagger Spray. Did I upgrade that? I have an unupgraded Dagger Spray in my deck. Ideally, you don't really want Cleave to be great here, but it might be pretty good here. I guess it's also on my second pass list, so we've got a Battle Hymn and a Cleave. Apotheosis, oh yeah, absolutely. We probably default to taking that card. Body Slam, not here, I don't think. Not an unupgraded one. Maybe an upgraded one would be good enough to take right now. We probably need more card draw, really. You want to combo it with drawing big block cards, and we don't have that many big block cards, and we're only drawing 5 cards a turn. Backstab, I don't think our turn 1 is good enough to be adding a backstab to it. If we had a Bag of Preparation, backstab would look a lot more appealing, but here we yeah, we need to be able to draw whatever good cards end up being in our deck. We don't even have them yet, but once we get them, we don't want to be drawing a backstab on turn 1. We want to be working quickly toward drawing something like an Apotheosis. Protect, definitely worth thinking about. This card's great. Just lets us block for a large amount on a turn where we need to block. Probably the fights are a little bit too fast for our deck right now for Protect to be that great though. Like probably we sort of have to play it the first time we draw it immediately. a lot of the time, in which case why not just get a better block card? And we do already have some better block cards, like Dash is immediately better. Stuff like Third Eye and Charge Battery is somewhat better. Indignation, no. Anger, not enough card draw, I don't think. Not right now. Other times, Anger could be pretty appealing. Not right now. Cloak and Dagger, we have no solid interactions with. Reach Heaven. Well, we don't go into Wrath, so the Through Violence from Reach Heaven is less good than usual. It's still okay. It's probably worth considering, but I think it's not quite making my second pass list. Battle, Hem, Cleave, Apotheosis is what we're thinking about so far. Heat Sinks, don't have any other powers really. Like Water, can't enter Calm. Auto Shields, got plenty of 1-cost block cards, that's okay. Bowling Bash, probably better than Cleave. So probably if we're taking an AoE card, it's going to be Bowling Bash, and I'm a little bit more excited about that one than I am about Cleave, to be honest. Sands of Time, with Vulnerable. That card's excellent, and Sanctity is sort of like a backflip. I think this ends up being between Sands of Time and Apotheosis for me. I think the other stuff on the shortlist is just not quite living up to the expectations set by those cards. And the reason that we would not take Apotheosis would be that we believe that Lesson Learned can upgrade enough of the cards in our deck for Apotheosis not to be that great. I guess there are two reasons actually. The other reason is that we think that Sands of Time is really important right now. I'm currently missing 10, 11, 12, 13 upgrades. And I will probably continue to add unupgraded cards to my deck, and I can't upgrade at campfires. I'm okay at hallway fights, but I'm not very good at them. I'm definitely going to events rather than hallway fights. I'm not going to take that many hallway fights in the act, and I won't get that many upgrades from them. Should we try a Sands of Time and try to fight elites? It's really hard for me to judge exactly how strong Sands of Time is going to be here, but I think it's probably pretty good. And we have a few block cards to stay alive while it reduces cost. Let's try it. I think the Retain is a very strong thing as well. We're about to go to a store with 255 gold. If you've never looked at exactly how much stuff costs in stores, 250 gold plus or minus 10% is what uncommon relics cost. So, here, shop prices, here we go. Common card 50, uncommon card 75, rare card 150. It costs more though, right? Because of Ascension whatchamading. 10% more. So actually it's 275 for an uncommon relic, plus or minus 10%, which means that we sort of can't get one anyway, which might make it okay to remove a card here. We'll still be able to get a shop relic or a common relic of our choice. A lot of the time, not always. But I think that like removing a card and buying a potion is often going to be good enough at this store. And removing 2 cards to get rid of 2 strikes seems really good because we've had to add so many so-so common cards to our deck. And when I say common cards, like Hemokinesis is an uncommon, Dash is an uncommon, but I'm sort of counting them too. Cards which get in the way of whatever powerful thing we're going to put together with rare cards later in the game. So this way, if we get a really good rare card, we can still grab it. If we get a good shop relic or common relic, we can still grab those. Looks like we would have been able to afford a frozen egg. I don't know, we would have been 10 gold short, so we wouldn't have had that anyway. And then probably the default buy in the store is going to be like attack potion card remove, which is fine. So the things that are very appealing in this store to me are Foresight. I think Foresight's better than Master of Strategy, and it costs almost 100 gold less. Just a very, very powerful card for drawing the cards that you want to play every turn. Very good in boss fights, even fast enough to be good in hallway fights when we have a lesson learned. It's better than usual in hallway fights because of that lesson learned. Clockwork Souvenir, start each combat with 1 artifact charge. This is a very big deal, especially with a potion belt. We can like stock up some steroid potions and speed potions for boss fights and get permanent plus strength or dexterity. We don't have any potions right now though. But even just negating a debuff from the Slavers elite fight could be a really big deal. And then yeah, like I said, attack potion card remove is also very good here. I think getting rid of strikes is just really, really, really useful. And also I want to try this elite fight, I think. The thing about the elite fight is that if I go this way, it's like, I have to fight 2 fights anyway, but one of them's a hard Act 2 hallway fight instead of an elite fight. And the elite fights are not that much worse than hard Act 2 hallway fights. They're somewhat worse. Slavers are worse, but I think Book of Stabbing and Gremlin Leader are not significantly worse for this deck when we have an attack potion. Yeah, and then the hard Act 2 hallway fight doesn't give you a relic. And relics are pretty good. Unless they're ceramic fish. In which case they're not as good. I guess it's worth noting that because of ceramic fish I can actually buy Foresight and card remove if I want in this store. But I think I'd rather attack potion card remove. I could also go attack potion Heart of Iron and really solidify my ability to kill 1 elite. Need to kill more than 1 elite to win this run, I think. Yeah, we'll go attack potion card remove. I think that removing strikes has quite variable value based on how much like junk is in your deck and how difficult it is for your deck specifically to get through that junk. And probably that's something that you only start to get a really good sense for as you've played a lot of the game. Just how important exactly is it to be removing strikes right now versus doing other things. I want to battle trance first because I want to have Dagger Spray next turn. Another option is Third Eye. Make sure we don't draw Dagger Spray with Battle Trance and then Battle Trance. How important is it exactly to have Dagger Spray next turn? It's probably not that important. Okay. I think it's fine to play Lesson Learned here. We don't need to try to get an upgrade, I don't think. And then Third Eye I think is better than Charge Battery, and we can just discard this Defend but keep the other stuff. Maybe Charge Battery was actually better. Gremlin Leader is my favorite fight in the game, I think. Gremlin Leader is really interesting. So, Act 2 is not where we want to be. All bosses, all monsters, non-boss, Gremlin Leader. Gremlin Leader has 3 moves: Rally, Stab, and Encourage. Stab is the multi-attack, Encourage is buffing everybody. And at this point it gives +5 strength and blocks for 10 on all of the minions, which is pretty scary at this difficulty. And Rally summons 2 gremlins. And the really interesting thing for me is the AI of Gremlin Leader. With 0 allies, there's a 75-25 split between Rally and Stab. With 1 ally, has a 50-30-20 split between Rally and Courage and Stab. And with more than 1 ally, has a 66-34 split between Encourage and Stab, but cannot use any move twice in a row. So if you work it all out, if we kill all of the gremlins this turn, there's a 75% chance that Gremlin Leader summons next turn. If we leave one of them alive, there is a 20% chance that Gremlin Leader attacks next turn. Wait, no there isn't. I'm sorry. That's incorrect, because Gremlin Leader can't buff again next turn. So there's whatever One move has 50 weight, the other has 20 weight in a pool with 70 weight. So there's 20 divided by 70, which is, I mean, math on camera, etc. You should never do that. But something somewhat above 30%, just barely, right? Oh, is it just 6634 again? Might just be 6634. I think it doesn't matter if we kill 2 or 3 here in terms of how likely we are to get attacked next turn. I think that's what I've decided. But by saying the things that I just said. That said, you want to kill the fat gremlin anyway. The big thing in the gremlin leader fight is trying to work out how to not get attacked and killed, which is tremendous fun. It is. It is just so much fun to be like, please do not kill me, gremlin leader. I enjoy it. So far we've been pretty lucky. No attacks so far. The other thing is sometimes gremlin leader starts the fight off by attacking instead of buffing. And in those scenarios, sometimes you want to encourage gremlin leader to keep attacking you because the attack isn't that frightening when gremlin leader hasn't buffed at all. I didn't do the math fully there, but I'm almost 100% sure that we always kill this turn. And that ends up actually being a 0 damage gremlin leader fight. Is that right? Is that what I just saw? I've had the spreadsheet open the entire time. I'm sorry. We'll bring us back to the to the big screen now. Had to leave the spreadsheet open to bring luck. This can't possibly be at 40% right now. I think I missed it going up by 10 at the end of one of the fights. So it was actually at 60% in that fight and is now 50%. Liquid Memories is a very good potion, and these cards are bad. It's an attack common. We already apply vulnerable with cards we already have. This one's okay, but it's also basically an attack common. I feel like I've been saying some fairly significant percentage of the time during this run that we don't want to add attack commons to our deck all that much. With these potions and that elite fight result, I'm wondering if we can go this way now. We may be able to. And Blood Vial's whatever. Blood Vial is an inoffensive and totally okay relic. It does make the Bites event slightly better for us, but I'm not sure that we would take the Bites event anyway. We only have 2 strikes left, and Bites event puts 5 bites in your deck. So we're trading 2 strikes for 5 bites. If I was trading 5 strikes for 5 bites, that would be clearly good. But trading 2 strikes for 5 bites, yeah, we make the point about not wanting a billion attack commons in our deck again, right? Snecko fight. Snecko is a devious foe. Snecko confuses us at the start of the fight, so if only we had bought that Clockwork souvenir, but we didn't. I think that the fact we have a Sands of Time and a dash probably means we're in pretty good shape here, although the dash is in our discard pile. I don't think I'm meant to potion in this situation. Also, I'm not getting debuffed. So after after confusing us on Ascension very much, Snecko is going to choose between Tail Whipping, which deals damage and vulnerables us and weakens us, which is really bad. That's what's happening this turn. Or Biting, which deals a bunch more damage. It deals 27 when we're vulnerable. And so what we don't want is to get debuffed and then bitten. But probably we're about to. 60% of the time we get bitten next turn. Please, Snecko, do not bit. We also will be weakened next turn, so... There was an option to discard Sands of Time and use Liquid Memories to play it this turn. Deals 30 damage. I think I play Flying Sleeves. It costs 2, so it's not really a premium card to be retaining anyway. Okay, we got a little bit lucky, and Snecko has decided to make the small attack against us again. Another thing that happened though is that we drew Lesson Learned in a situation where we can play it for an upgrade if we use a potion. And I think in this situation, we are going to typically want to use a potion in order to get an upgrade into our deck in this run with Fusion Hammer. I think that charge battery upgrade, you consider, one, we don't take any more damage in the fight, and we could have easily taken more damage in the fight. Two, we now have a charge battery upgrade for every fight for the rest of the game. And I think that will just, over time, give significantly more value than the Liquid Memories was. Oh, we found the good damage commons. They are still sort of damage commons, but I believe we take an uppercut here. We only have a go for the eyes for weak so far. And it ensures that we can vulnerable enemies. I think it's okay. I don't think it's really something to be excited over, though. I think we're going to... Okay, let's open this chest. Art of War. What is it that I've been saying about damage commons? I think we can just skip this, honestly. So the decision to take the Sapphire Key, the thing is the Sapphire Key doesn't do anything until the end of Act 3, ever. Art of War does stuff from now until the end of the run. The relic that we would get in the next chest, where we don't have to take Sapphire Key and can take the relic instead, only gets to do things from when we pick it up until the end of the run. So Art of War has a few extra floors to gain value over a later relic that we might pick up later. So even though the later relic might be better per floor, if we don't have it for as many floors, it might not actually help us as much in the run. That said, I think Art of War is just absolute garbage in this deck. I don't think we ever go a turn without playing an attack card unless we're like doing something really weird, so just unfortunately not the one we wanted, which has been the general theme for relics in this run. So the question becomes question marks or elite fights. One of the most valuable, fights, not that good, actually. Upgrade strikes and defends, I think, is not that incredible right now. Gets us 5 upgrades, but we do have lesson learned, so we get upgrades from the other floors anyway. Apparitions are not that good here either, because we don't have any scaling. Like, apparitions are great for defending us while our demon form ticks up, but we don't have demon form. We missed that. So I think I'm okay with trying the elites, and there is a significant chance of death involved in this decision, but I think there's also overall a higher chance of winning the run. I think that if we go this way, even the premium Act 2 events are not that good for this deck in particular. The exception maybe be of Colosseum. Colosseum's very good. Colosseum's like 2 elite fights that doesn't cost us as much health on average. Although we should be okay against Book of Stabbing. No, I think we go this way. I think we just don't get enough out of the question marks compared to what we can get here. We're about to be weak, so let's use the attack potion this turn. It's too bad that Sunder Sands of Time doesn't quite kill one. It deals 44. Well, we take Sunder, I think, every time anyway. And then we play everything that isn't Sands of Time. Seems like a fairly simple turn in the end. Bash Lesson Learned is an upgrade here. If I play Battle Trance, which I don't have to do, if I draw Dash, I can then go Dash Lesson Learned and I still get the upgrade because Dash deals more damage than Bash. I can also draw Go for the Eyes, which is excellent. Dagger Spray is okay, and we can draw a better card to play than Defend for blocking. So I think Battle Trance is a card that we want to play this turn. It's worth thinking about. You don't always want to play it there. And now instead of Bash, I can play Crush Joints Lesson Learned, get my upgrade, and then I can perhaps grab an uppercut, actually, as a way to block, which also deals some damage. In the Slavers fight, the Slavers are pretty scary. You would like to kill them before they kill you, generally. Generally, if your strategy against Slavers is to block a lot, you're not going to have a great time. So far we have definitely not blocked a lot, which is... Unfortunately, they keep on hitting us. I keep taking damage and I'm not sure why. But, yeah, it's okay. Okay, so playing Dash seemed incredibly obvious there, and always goes against Blue Slaver. You want to kill the back Slaver almost always because it vulnerables you and ensnares you, and those are just really nasty debuffs, and it doesn't have that much health. Usually you want to kill the front Slaver next because it attacks you for more than the middle Slaver does in the, like, middle turns of the fight, and also because it weakens you, and also because it has less health. And then usually you kill the middle Slaver last. This fight's going formulaically in that way. But now the question is, how do we play this turn exactly? We get to play 2 1-cost cards here, or 1 2-cost card. Deals 15 to that, or this deals 8 to it. If we deal 15 to it, then Sands of Time can kill next turn. Yeah. Okay with the Hemokinesis here, I think. I'd expect to lose maybe 30 health to Book of Stabbing with this deck, so I feel like we're... I said that I was going to wait to play that until I made sure that I wanted to every turn. Whoops, I've lied. I think we're in fairly good shape here still, in terms of surviving the entire act. I believe it's correct to play a Hemokinesis. And then I believe it's correct to defend and strike. This is a moment we have to look at our draw pile. Yeah, like Sunders and out. The strikes are out straight. Was it at 36 and 27, and that deals 30? Yeah, I think we can safely save 5 health there. So your elite fight is never the last elite fight that you had. But other than that, it can be whichever elite fight. So it could be Gremlin Leader again next turn, or it could be Book of Stabbing next turn, next time we fight an elite. And it's 50-50 either way. We probably prefer Gremlin Leader, but an interesting thing about fights in this game is you have to understand the damage that you take from them as a distribution. You can't just think about, like, what's the average damage I take. You have to think about what all the different possible amounts of damage you might take are. So if we think about the fights that we are potentially going into here, and we think about how often we take different amounts of damage, right now I would say that against Book of Stabbing, which I'll draw in red, if this is like lethal damage, and this is 0 damage, and this is the probability that something occurs, I would say that against Book of Stabbing, I feel like we take a distribution of damage that's like, it's like sort of in here. We do take a lot of damage, but we don't die very often. Maybe sometimes we die. Maybe the distribution goes out this way. And I'm drawing these as like bars because we can only take discrete amount of damage. We could only take like 10 or 11 or 12. We can't take 11.5, so it's like correct to draw them as bars, but it's a lot easier to think about it like that. Just wanted to draw them as bars first and then say, yeah, I'm not actually going to do that. So I might think Book of Stabbing damage looks something vaguely like that. And it can kill us. Against Gremlin Leader, I feel like the amount of damage we take is like something like it's like very Gremlin Leader has a lot more noise in it. So we take 0 damage sometimes. We also die outright sometimes. And we can also take damage in between. Gremlin Leader is much less easy to feel confident in your analysis of in this sort of situation. And when you're going into a fight and it might kill you, it's really nice to have like potions to use in case you get unlucky. Because sometimes a potion is of the sort of thing. Sometimes a potion is the sort of potion which can make a fight which goes very unfortunately for you end up going well. Take, for example, a fight where you might get attacked for a massive amount of damage on one turn in the fight, or you might not. So like a Gremlin Leader fight, for example. A Gremlin Leader might attack you for 20 times 3 or might not attack you for 20 times 3. If you have a Ghost in a Jar in that fight, you never die to the 20 times 3 because it doesn't deal damage. It turns into a 1 times 3. And so some potions will fix that problem for you. If you have a fire potion in that Gremlin Leader situation, though, it doesn't fix the problem. Unless you're able to kill the Gremlin Leader outright, maybe. Or maybe you can kill the minions to make it less likely the Gremlin Leader attacks. But in general, it doesn't solve the problem as effectively as a Ghost in a Jar does. Now, in the Slavers fight, the way you might die is you might die if you get ensnared on turn 2 and then vulnerable on turn 3, and you're relying on attacks to kill things. And so in the Slavers fight, it may not actually be that useful to have a Ghost in a Jar because you're going to take truckloads of damage over the course of 2 or 3 turns in that scenario. It may actually be more useful to have a Fire Potion because the Fire Potion can be used to kill the back Slaver. And so a lot of the time as you go through a run, your potion management is not just about like, I can use a potion now to save 5 health for myself, but it's also about my deck isn't good at specifically the Gremlin Leader fight, so I need to hold on to specifically this potion to help me with specifically that fight. Because if you think about all the fights that you might go into, and they all can deal a certain distribution of damage to you, there's also like this hallway fight, and this hallway fight, and there's this other elite fight. The stuff that can kill you is here. And if you can get rid of that stuff for the entire run, you'll never die. So if potions can do that for you, that's very, very, very valuable to get out of a potion. And if potions can save you a bit of health in a fight, like if this red distribution can get moved a little bit to the left with a clever use of a potion, that's valuable too, because it saves you health. And it means that the next fight has to deal more damage to you to kill you. But there may be fights which just like, if they go wrong, they could deal you hundreds of damage, and a potion can solve that outright. And that potion may be something that you want to hold on to, even if it seems like there's a sort of useful time to use it right now, so that you can use it later in that fight. That's one of the reasons that Potion Belt is good, because you can use potions very flexibly to reduce the chance that you lose a run. We're offered another Like Water, a Sneaky Strike, and a Fear No Evil. Fear No Evil's fascinating here. We don't do anything with Calm, but if we took Fear No Evil, we could maybe take a Like Water later. I'm also thinking a lot about Empty Mind. Empty Mind is a card draw card, which is okay to have, and our deck needs more card draw. And it gets actively good if we have a Fear No Evil in our deck too, I think. So I think for Prismatic Shard Man here, Prismatic Shard person here, we perhaps do want the Fear No Evil. And then all of a sudden, if we're offered like another Tantrum, maybe we can start thinking about that with a little bit of Scry in the deck and stuff like that. Maybe we can win this run by just making our attack commons better and better and better until they're dealing enough damage to actually just outright kill the heart. This is a situation where we always play Battle Trance, I'm pretty sure, and we want to play it first because we can crush joints with it. And having missed, we want to play Dash, seems pretty straightforward. This fight's one that's really important to know the AI is for, so back to the spreadsheet again. The Centurion has more health, so it might look to a new player, like you want to kill the Centurion first. But the Centurion also has Defend, which blocks the ally in the fight, the Mystic, for 20 health. Or for 20 block. And so if you try to kill the Mystic, you're going to have the Centurion blocking for 20 on the Mystic a whole bunch of the time. And it's actually going to end up being harder to kill the Mystic than it was to kill the Centurion. Another thing that the Centurion has is Fury. Centurion will use Fury instead of Defend if the Mystic is dead. So it's a 65-35 to defend the Mystic or slash, so usually defending the Mystic while the Mystic's alive. So usually not very aggressive at all while the Mystic's alive. But then once you kill the Mystic, 100% of the time you're getting attacked, and 65% of the time that's a multi-attack, and the Mystic buffs strength in this fight, so that multi-attack's going to hit you really hard. So this is a fight where it might look like you're meant to kill the healer first, and I mean, killing the healer is sort of the trope in games with healers. But in this exact situation, we actually like almost always want to kill Centurion first. If you look at the Mystic AI, it's actually really interesting and important to know too. The Mystic has a party heal for 20, so healing itself and the Centurion for 20, and it uses this always up to twice in a row if there is 21 HP total available to heal. So we want to use attacks to deal 21 damage this fight, but it doesn't matter that much if we deal like more than that. The most important thing is to make sure that Mystic is going to heal twice in a row so that it's not buffing or attacking us on 2 or 3. And hopefully our deck can do enough strong things to justify this. So if we play Fear No Evil instead of Hemokinesis, we deal 6 less damage, but we do deal enough damage to make Mystic want to heal. And in this situation, that's enough. That's what we needed to do. Now Mystic's not attacking us, because Mystic is healing, and we've killed the Centurion. And boom. Boom. Fight done, basically. Unfortunately, I guess I should have maybe checked my draw pile. I managed to not draw enough to block this attack, so I am going to take a little bit of damage here. I don't think I updated my potion chance after that elite fight. Did I? 60%. 60% feels like maybe I did. It would be very nice to get another potion. The fight's not actually quite done, because in Slay the Spire, this is something that comes up a lot when someone new to the game is watching the channel. Your goal at the end of the fight is not to win the fight, it's to win the fight in the best way possible. And so if you can heal more, you want to heal more. If you have relics like Incense Burner or Pen Nib or something like that, which carry over charges to the next fight, you want to make sure that you try to put those on the best possible charges. And if you have a lesson learned in your deck, it's really important that you get an upgrade with it. So killing the Mystic last turn would have been very bad, because we would have not had this defend upgrade for the entire rest of the run. There are many, many reasons why going for the simplest, most immediate lethal is not always desirable in Slay the Spire, and in fact is, I mean, it's really very seldom desirable unless it's going to cost you damage to not do it. Heavy Blade plus, but we have no strength. Sword Boomerang, but we have no strength. So our choice ends up being Havoc or nothing here. Havoc's a very interesting card. It's one way to exhaust cards out of your deck, and that may seem scary, but if you can control which cards you're exhausting, like if you perhaps only play Havoc when you have certain cards left in your draw pile, or if you play Third Eye before you play Havoc, one thing that Havoc can do is it can get rid of stuff like Strike and Defend from your deck, and then by the time you're at turn 10 of your fight against the Act Boss, your deck doesn't have those bad cards and instead is like drawing Sands of Time every single turn. So Havoc would be the first card of the sort that can do that we added to the deck, and it's probably the worst for doing that consistently. Something like a True Grit Plus or a Burning Pact would do it much more easily than Havoc's going to. That said, the fact that Sands of Time retains means that a lot of time it will be in our hand. which makes it pretty safe to play Havoc if the main card that we care about not exhausting is Sands of Time. And Havoc does play cards that cost 2 energy for only 1 energy, so it's not unreasonable to play Havoc here. It also probably lets us take Feel No Pain, which I think is a pretty good card to take on Prismatic Shard Person. Even though you don't have quite as much exhaust as you would if you were only Ironclad, I'm pretty sure you still want a Feel No Pain with the other classes cards in your card pool too. So I think I will try a Havoc, and maybe we'll look back at this and feel bad about it later, but I'm gonna give it a go. Let's hope for another 0 damage Gremlin Leader fight. I did already talk about this fight, so I'm not going to go into great detail about it again. I guess I have to think about whether or not to Energy Potion on turn 1. I think I like Energy Potion on turn 1. Energy Potion on turn 1 here lets us bash Gremlin Leader, and that's a really big deal. Like, that does a lot, bashing Gremlin Leader here. So we go Uppercut here, bash here, Dagger Spray, go for the eyes. And then we're choosing between Third Eye and Hemokinesis. I think we go Hemokinesis. This is a situation where Havoc seems fine. And I'm going to greed a tiny amount. It's not even really greeding. I could have played Lesson Learned and never drawn it again, but I'd like to get the kill with it, so. Here, I think that we can never kill both gremlins, so we might as well keep vulnerable on Gremlin Leader and kill fat gremlins so we're not getting debuffed. Makes the most sense to me. Sands of Time is ticking down, we'll be able to play it soon. Unlucky. Well, not too many ways to play this turn. We just defend twice and I guess bash. And now we try to get out of this fight as quickly as possible because we do never get attacked the next turn after that happens. If I want to Lesson Learned in this fight, it's possible I can do it by doing this. We reshuffle our draw pile very quickly this way. It's also possible that I'll die on account of doing that. I think I have to Hemokinesis and Strike Plus, and we're ready to kill with Sands of Time next turn. If we need to. But we also have the ability to Lesson Learned somehow, maybe? How would we do that? This turn's suddenly very complicated. So I can draw defend, 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 defend Third Eye next turn and die if I don't kill, which I think is enough incentive to just get out of this. We do have a slight chance of hitting Lesson Learned and hitting Gremlin Leader with this Havoc, I guess. Let's do this too. So it's slightly more likely that Lesson Learned hits Gremlin Leader if we hit it. Yeah, that's okay. We didn't die in the 2 elite fights. We got a Singing Bowl, so this Bag of Prep and the Singing Bowl are 2 good relics finally. We got another potion, which is excellent. Singing Bowl takes a while to really get going. Getting 2 max HP every time you skip a card is very good though. We got a Corruption, wow. I gotta imagine that that's a good card here. We actually will still have a dash in our deck, a dash plus even, after removing all of our skills, so we can even sort of still block. And Yeah, getting rid of the skills and just having damage cards left in our deck lets us very quickly kill Automaton, so this card is powerful now, and we expect it to get much more powerful later as well. I don't think I've had a hallway fight in events yet. So I think it's at 20, 30, 10, 20, 30. I think it's 40% chance of a hallway fight here. We have the Augmenter event, which is one of the events which is sometimes quite good and other times not good at all. Jax is... It's our first strength, and we have a bunch of attacks. It's okay. I think transforming 2 strikes, maybe a strike and a defend since I upgraded one of the strikes, although with corruption, defends get pretty good. Anything else I could transform? Maybe just transforming 2 strike pluses could be okay. Ironclad cards probably get a little bit better when we have a bunch of multi-attacks and a corruption and a havoc. Like Feel No Pain's pretty good, any strength is pretty good. And just mutagens doesn't seem super great. Maybe if it were before the Act 2 elite fights and just mutagens would be a bit better so that we could kill Gremlin Leader's ads on turn 1 and kill the Beck Slaver on turn 1 and stuff like that. But at this point in the run, we're starting to get away from being able to meaningfully kill dangerous enemies on turn 1. Dangerous enemies at this point in the run start to be enemies you have to be able to deal with over the course of multiple turns. If we had a Clockwork Souvenir, we could have bought one of those earlier in the run. This would give us 3 strength on turn 1, and that could be justifying taking it for sure. That could use 3 strength. It would be much more appealing, I think, to have 3 strength on turn 1 without having to draw and play Jaxed than to... Yeah. But... between Jaxed and Transform 2 cards here, I think. I don't know if the Transforms are always Ironclad cards, either. Actually, I'm not sure. What's going on in this deck? We have to beat a boss and we don't have any strength, and we have, like, a bunch of 1-cost attacks. Let's take Jax then. And I think we do... Yeah, I mean, a hallway fight can kill us, so I think we definitely go to a question mark floor. We got a defrag. It's funny. Wow. If I were to duplicate something with Mirror, this is often a very good relic, because often you have like cards which are really strong in your deck and you want to build around them more, and having 2 of them instead of 1 of them is one way to build around them more. But if I were to duplicate a card in this run, it would be like Battle Trance, maybe? Which isn't that bad. It's pretty bad. I think Cut Through Fate's good. And I think maybe removing Strike might be the next best thing that we can do here, which isn't very good. But there might just not be much that's very good here. These relics aren't that good, I don't think. So let's remove a Strike. Let's grab a Fire Potion, Steroid Potion. Let's grab a Steroid Potion for the boss fight, and we're going to hope this goes well. I feel worse about this than I did about Hexaghost, and I felt pretty bad about Hexaghost. But also I very easily killed Hexaghost, so who knows what will happen. Definitely played Jax before Corruption. Battle Trance here. And now we have to make the decision about whether we're Corruptioning now or not. Always a pretty tough decision. It stops me from playing Uppercut this turn, which sucks. But on the other hand, my skills are bad. I don't really want to play them twice. And I have enough energy worth of attacks that if I can play the skills for 0, it lets me play the attacks as well. I think this is a corruption, and it's a corruption and hope. Whatever will be, will be. I'm gonna get rid of unupgraded defend. I never want to draw that again. I'm gonna play charge batteries that I have another energy next turn as well. We'll go for the eyes. Next turn whenever I draw Dagger Spray, I'm planning to use Steroid Potion and Flying Sleeves that turn. Will I draw Dagger Spray or will it get stolen? Yeah, I'll draw Dagger Spray at some point. Let's draw that next turn, I guess. I would like another Strike Plus, I guess, next turn as well. Havoc seems like it could hit Cut Through Fate, which would be bad, but otherwise would be fine to draw, so let's draw and play that next turn too. I think Crush Joints and Bash probably go against ads here, so that we can really kill those quickly next turn. And we definitely want to Essence of Steel, and we are... I mean, this is as good as it's gonna get, unfortunately. Alright, here's our Flex Potion turn. I think the ads are dead. I think I'd like to get rid of Fear No Evil. I guess I'll just do this. Sure. Okay, whatever. It's slightly less good, but still fine. I don't really want to draw this. We can hit here, and we have already successfully... Wait, is Dagger Spray in my draw pile? I think it's actually preferable not to kill this right now, and instead to deal damage to Automaton. And I think I play Strike over Hemokinesis, but I'm not sure. Probably actually meant to play Hemokinesis over Strike. May come to regret that pretty soon. Because we're not going to survive the Hyper Beam in this fight, I don't think, anyway. So saving health doesn't really achieve much. We can vulnerable Hyper Beam Man here. Yeah, we're never meant to try to survive the Hyper Beam. We're just like, we don't have enough block after playing Corruption at all. What we do have is a decent amount of strength, and certainly we don't have any skills left in our deck to stop us from spending 4 energy on attacks every turn. So the question is, do we kill it before this attack goes off? And the answer is... I think no, unfortunately. I think that might be the end. Is there any way? The best we can do is strike, right? Unfortunately, I think that might be the end. Oh my gosh, we're 8 short. How much extra damage was Hemokinesis dealing over strike? More than 8. Well, it's a little after 2:20 a.m. and I've been working my way through this run for a little over 2 hours, so that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this fight was winnable and I managed to lose it, and it's unfortunate the way it was winnable is so incredibly obvious and that I said that I did the wrong thing as I did it. But we have lost. I hope that the run was interesting to you despite the unsatisfying end. Yeah, again, I'll have links to this reference sheet, which is awesome, below the video, and also to this analysis sheet where you can get a sense of exactly how likely different events are and how good an average event seems to be, and see for yourself how the math works with things like relic chats and shop chats if you want to really get into that. We didn't get to look at Act 3 stuff, but in general I would say events in Act 3 are quite good, but sometimes they're really bad. You gotta keep an eye on that. Talked a little bit about rare card chance and got into that. I'm looking forward to the paragraphs. Gosh, just needed to play Hemokinesis, huh? Feels bad. Alright. Well, oh, let us die. Good attempt, Prismatic Shard Man. And I hope to see ya all again next time. I guess it won't be an over-explain next time, just more of the regular Slay the Spire content. Lots of exciting stuff going on the channel right now, though. Got more sponsored Griftlands going, playing Monster Train, playing Legend of Keepers on the channel. I'm playing an XCOM campaign as well, so if you're interested in more than just the regular Spire runs and want to come hang out on Twitch, a lot of that doesn't ever get uploaded to YouTube, but I would love to have you. You can even watch the VODs on Twitch if you go to twitch.tv/Jorbs/videos if you want to just scrub through some other content on your own time. It's pretty easy to do. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, and I hope that the world is treating you okay in this crazy time. I'll see you next time.